So which very respected founding father of this country said of the Native Americans, the end proposed should either be their extermination or their removal? I'm going to tell you in a second. So I am Melissa Terzis, DC Real Estate Mama, and today I am taking the kids and even real estate dads making an appearance to the Museum of the American Indian. So I want to make a little disclaimer. I'm actually pretty interested in the history of this country as it pertains to our founding fathers and those who were here before them, who are really like the true Americans of this country. To this day, I insist that I did not learn about Custer's Last Stand, which is also known as the Battle of Little Bighorn, or anything about the Trail of Tears. So what I didn't truly process was the extent to which things had occurred and how it came to be that Native Americans now live on their own protected reservations, they have their own governance, and how long this process actually took for them to be able to stake claim to land. Many museums I know are about celebrating arts and culture or certain things, and make no mistake, there's not a lot to celebrate here. So this is a very curated collection of exhibits that show things like the Native American culture, their existence in advertising and pop culture, and the sacrifices that they've really made for hundreds and hundreds of years as their country was invaded, their land was stolen from them, their people were raped and murdered. And it really was, I think, necessary to bring the girls so that they could understand how the country came to be, even if a good bit of it went over their heads. Here we are. Hi, girls.
Can we go in now?
We're gonna go in now. When you approach the National Museum of the American Indian, the first thing you will notice is that the building is incredibly unique. The design is intended to mimic the curves and ripples of rock as created by centuries of water and wind. Once inside, though, and through security, Real Estate Dad explained the Atrium Design and how it was intended to replicate some of the pieces of art that they found. All right, tell us. This sexy guy's going to tell us something now.
All right. These are the sacred circles that a lot of the Indian tribes had, and they found, and they're the designs. So if you pan up into the ceiling of the museum...
Hold on, show us where?
Up. You'll see that they made the top of it like the sacred circle.
That's very interesting, Real Estate Dad.
Yes, it is.
Real estate dad.
Did you kids learn something from Real Estate Dad?
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't look on my phone for that.
A few exhibits were closed during continuing COVID restrictions, but we headed into the American exhibits first. There are hundreds of examples of Native American culture and associations being part of television, advertisements, and consumer goods. Within the Americans exhibit, there were some side exhibits about the Battle of Little Bighorn and the Trail of Tears. In 1830, the U.S. passed the Indian Removal Act, which was the forced relocation of over 16,000 Cherokee Indians. There was much debate about this leading up to the passage, mostly because many eyes were on the quote-unquote new country that the U.S. had become, but it passed and became one of the bloodstains on our culture. While he didn't live to see the Indian Removal Act passed, Thomas Jefferson is noted as the first person who suggested that the American Indians be moved west and replaced with white settlers. And who actually signed that into law? Andrew Jackson. No surprise there. So Thomas Jefferson was one of the founding fathers that had initially said the quote at the beginning, which is, the end proposed should be their extermination or their removal.
Not to integrate us like other people of color, but to assimilate us and we would no longer exist. We probably lost 100 tribes in that process of termination.
Had termination succeeded, the American government would simply ignore the past as if the past had never happened and that Indian people had never been here.
Termination was such a threat, the tribes really rallied together to oppose it. And the tribes found that when they were assembled and working together, that they actually were more powerful than anyone realized.
The other big exhibit was the Nation to Nation section, which explains all the treaties signed by the Native Americans over the centuries and how they really transpired. Spoiler alert, the United States never followed what was agreed to if it didn't suit their interests. So we did learn some important stuff here. In Native culture, the women are the ones who selected the negotiators and ran things behind the scenes. Yeah, girls. After getting through all these treaties, you learn in the 1940s that the government attempted to terminate all treaty obligations, take away their ability to govern, and take away their land. And the Native Americans fought back hard. It took until the 1960s for public opinion to shift and show sympathy, and in 1970, another surprise. Richard Nixon was the one of the advocates calling on the government to reject the termination of the American Indian and allow them the rights of self-governance. So see, we only remember him for Watergate, but sounds like he did something good. Several exhibits were closed since things are just coming back to life post-COVID, but I feel like we saw some pretty important stuff, and by the end, both girls were asking questions and said that they enjoyed it. So I think this is ultimately probably better for older kids though, maybe teenagers and up, so that they can kind of understand this a little bit better. But I was also happy to know that throughout the rest of the day, my older daughter, Mercina, was asking questions, so she was definitely still interested. All right, that was it for the Native American Museum of the American Indian. Leah, what did you think?
I loved it.
You loved it? Mercina, what did you think?
I also loved it.
You loved it? Awesome. And they learned a lot today.
But I hated it in the first place, and then I loved it.
Yeah, I know.
And Daddy's gonna try to scare us.
Yeah, Daddy's gonna try to scare us. All right, so that's it. DC Real Estate Mama checking out of the American Indian Museum. Contact info's coming next.